Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations from Stritch. Today is September 22nd, and I'm David Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm joined, as I always am, by Dr. Christopher Sant, our provost. Sorry I missed out on last week, but you had a great show. I was able to catch up on it and watch it, and it was amazing. I think the new program for incarcerated individuals is really going to be great. So it was a great show. And thanks to Ray Kennelly for sitting in for me. I did want to make a couple announcements about some great news we got from the ranking publications, and recognizing that they have their place, they're not the whole thing. But Lewis has been recognized by several ranking institutions for its quality education and value. U.S. News and World Report, Money.com, and Forbes all selected Lewis University as a top university in the nation and in Illinois. U.S. News and World Report honored Lewis University as a top 25 best regional university in the Midwest. We're also recognized as the best college for social mobility and one of the best colleges for veterans. We were recognized by Money Magazine in their list of best colleges in America. And finally, Forbes, America's top college list, where they just ranked 500 of the 4,000 institutions in the country, included Lewis as being in the top 10 among private colleges in Illinois. It's really an honor, and that review, the annual review from Forbes, looks at undergraduate institutions that deliver top academics, great experiences, career success, and lowest debt, and then look at that package as an overall value for a family, and that's how Forbes is really different than U.S. News and World Report. So we are one of only 15 schools in Illinois that got ranked in that out of about 65 or 70. So it's a real honor in terms of what we get out of that, in terms of reminding ourselves of kind of how we do well and what we do well. So just a reminder for everyone, as the show goes on, remember that askus@lewisu.edu is your place to go to ask a question, make a comment. It could be now or later when we have our guest on if you want to ask a question. But you can go there now, or even if you're watching the show 3 days from now, we'll still respond to those questions. So turned over to Dr. Sant here to talk a little bit about some of the events that are going on campus.
Great. Great to be with you, everyone. And it's great news about those rankings. I know we often, there are so many ranking systems now, and we take them all somewhat in our own context, but it's great especially to be recognized for some of the things that you mentioned: social mobility, affordability, and as well as overall excellence. And it's always a point of pride at Lewis to be recognized for our excellence in educating veterans. So it is really great news. So couple of news items to begin. Congratulations to Mark Swain, professor of art, who will have a featured show at the Ferguson Art Gallery at Concordia University on Sunday. It's free and open to the public, and a reception will be held in the gallery there on Sunday with the artist talk at 3 p.m. The exhibition Three Faces of Eve continues for a little bit longer here. Lewis's features the work of Eve Ozer. The show will be on display daily from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. through September 25th in the Brent and Jean Wadsworth Family Gallery. I'm really excited to invite all the members of our community to hear an overview of the Illinois courts, a lecture by Illinois Supreme Court Justice Lisa Holder White at 4 p.m. Tuesday, October 11th in room the Academic Building 158A on the Lewis University campus. A Lewis University alumna who is the first Black woman to serve on the Illinois Supreme Court. White earned her Bachelor of Art degree magna cum laude from Lewis University and her Juris Doctorate from the University of Illinois College of Law. She was sworn into the role on July 7th this year and appointed to serve on the Illinois Supreme Court through December 2024. Really excited about that event.
It's amazing, and it'd be great to spend some time. I know you and I are going to also be able to have a meal with her after the lecture, and so it'll just be great to get a sense of her sense of the legal framework, but also obviously being, given that opportunity to serve on the Supreme Court is, I'm sure, really exciting for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a couple more reminders of some events coming up, some big events coming up. Lecture by Valerie Kaur on October 20th at 7 p.m. at Convocation Hall. See No Stranger, and that is really the culminating event of the peace teach-in a few days that week. And then also activists, artists, practitioners, scholars, students, as well as formerly incarcerated and others are invited to convene on October 21st and 22nd on our campus for a kind of a mini conference called The Confines of Place, the Intersections of Race, Place, Migration, and Mass Incarceration as Legacies of American Slavery. So we're excited about that as well. And that will also have an event, a keynote address at 5 p.m. That night. And if you're interested in registering, you can go to lewisu.edu/legacies of slavery to register. And the conference will feature a keynote address by Reuben Jonathan Miller, the author of Halfway Home, Race, Punishment, and the Afterlife of Mass Incarceration at 5 p.m. on that Friday night, October 21st. So we're very excited about that conference and about the keynote address, and I encourage everyone is welcome to register for that free conference. So I'm going to turn it to you, and I also want to say something, which is that we have, so you gave the email address, the askus@lewisu.edu. We have gotten a little bit of feedback over, both through the email address and just people sharing feedback in general, about how we do a great job of news, events, and athletics. And sometimes we overlook some student activities that are available for students on campus. And not because of that, but also just because we generally continue to improve our communication here on campus. We have this great new feature, which you may have noticed. On Mondays, we now send out a very concise student activity list for the week. So I'm turning it over to you, but I wanted to explain that this is somewhat of a result of feedback.
Oh, and there we go. So there it is,
what it looks like,
up on your screen. And I did see that in the weekly. I always look at that for whose birthday's happening and other things. But this is a great addition because it's and I think the use of that QR code also to kind of be able to kind of know where it is, and I think it's a great addition.
And it highlights some athletic, some recreation things, as well as some really great club events or community events, places to come together. So we'll try to pull out some things and announce them in the future weeks, or maybe do some other presentations of those. But it's always, I get overwhelmed by how much is going on here.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate that kind of digest version of activities.
And just as much, I mean, I think what's really valuable about what you said, how you, the kind of intro to that was, we get feedback from Ask Us, like people in the community watch the show. They notice that we talk about faculty and sports and certain things, and they want to know that their clubs and organizations and activities are being highlighted because they know that other people watch it. And of course, what we want is a vibrant campus where people are going to, I think there was a planting of a cactus a couple weeks ago, and there's all these different events that go on. So, but turning to, and I do want to say though, I think you've been over there. I was able to, and we talked about this before, but Eve Ozer's show that is just there for 3 more days, I think. Really worth going to. If you haven't been over there, 3 different styles. So the 3 Faces of Eve is about 3 different ways that she does her art. So I would highly, recommend stopping by if you haven't been over there. So on the athletic side, congratulations to the men's and women's cross country teams for an amazing showing last weekend at the National Catholic Invitational. I was actually looking at these race results when we were at the volleyball match last Friday, and I was commenting to Chris that I was amazed that we finished second on the women's side and finished second to Notre Dame. So some years they actually have Notre Dame in a different class because they're a D1 school, which means we would have won it had Notre Dame not been in there. On the men's side, we finished third, just behind Loris, 1 point, one runner behind Loris, and Notre Dame. So we finished in third place. We scored 77 points. Notre Dame, came in first again. But I just think it's an amazing showing by our teams, and they're both ranked nationally. So we'll look forward to seeing them run over the next month, and hopefully we'll get both teams to nationals again this year. Men's and women's soccer is at home this weekend, hosting Indianapolis on Sunday, noon for the women, 2:30 for the men. So if you take some time away from studying and come over and watch a soccer game or two, and then you can get back to studying and getting a Beast Burger in the evening. So, Healthy Campus.
Yeah, so just some quick announcements related to our Healthy Campus approach, and really all today, I just wanted to talk about the vaccination schedule. So together with local Westmont Pharmacy, the Lewis University Department of Nursing will be offering both annual flu and COVID-19 bivalent boosters on the Romeo campus for Lewis University students, faculty, and staff. To be eligible for the updated COVID-19 booster, it must be at least 2 months since the individual's last COVID-19 vaccine dose. For those in athletics, the event is Monday, September 26th from 2 to 4 p.m. in the rec center. And then for the rest of the community, we are seeing those dates beginning right now. It's going on right now as we speak in the university dining room. I plan to go there immediately after this taping or this broadcast to get my flu and COVID vaccines, and then the Westmont Pharmacy will be back on Tuesday, September 27th from 3:30 to 6, and on Monday, October 3rd from 3 to 6 in the Brother James Gaffney Student Center. The September 27th clinic is in the lobby of South Hall. So please take advantage of those, and more I'm sure will be coming after that. So we're going to shift gears now, and I'm really pleased to introduce our guest for the day. One piece of this is a reminder of our annual Signum Fidei event is now right around the corner. Signum Fidei is our signature fundraiser for our mission fund, which is used to assist students when they have a serious negative event happen in their lives that impacts their ability to continue to study and complete their degree. This year we have moved the event to the House of Blues in Chicago, and we hope to raise over $300,000 for the mission event. Signum Fidei will be held Saturday night, September 24th. So for more information, please visit the website, and you can still register. Also, the Signum Fidei celebration will honor Brother Michael Quirk, and we are delighted that he is our guest today. Brother Michael Quirk has recently retired as the president and CEO of Christian Brothers Services, a Lasallian enterprise which serves Catholic institutions and organizations by administering and managing employee health benefits and retirement plans, religious health trusts, and institutional risk management services. Prior to joining CBS, he was the president of De La Salle Institute, a co-institutional secondary school in Chicago for 20 years. He's also taught at both the high school and university levels. And Brother Michael holds an MBA and BA from Lewis University and a doctorate in education from DePaul University. He presently serves or has served on boards of various Lasallian and other institutions, Christian Brothers University, CSJ Initiatives, the International Finance Council, the FEC Foundation, the Church Benefits Association, Church Alliance, as well as Lewis University. And that is not a complete list, I'm sure. He is the former president of De La Salle Institute in Chicago and member of the Chicago Board of Ethics and former president of the Catholic United Investment Trust. So very pleased to welcome Brother Michael. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, and we are so excited to honor you this weekend at Signum Fidei. But it's been, I would say, an amazing career. But I think for our students, faculty, and staff, and alumni who are watching, maybe where I'd like to start is taking you back to your days at Lewis.
Okay.
So maybe we just go back in the way back machine and tell me a little bit about, because coming to Lewis and what it was like when you were here. You might want to even contrast that with what it's like today.
Right.
And I know you had many kind of jobs and other, you did all sorts of things at Lewis while you were here. You were very involved. So maybe you just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to tell you how I got here.
Okay, good.
All right.
Let's start there.
So I'm a native of Harvey, Illinois, and after high school I went to Thornton Junior College and graduated from junior college. Wasn't sure if I wanted to continue. My two sisters had graduated from Eastern Illinois. My brother was a Vietnam vet, and when he came back, he went to college and graduated from college. So, the summer I was working at a muffler factory.
Oh, wow.
And I was the guy that made the boxes and put the labels, and I passed it to the next guy who put the mufflers in. And I'm trying to think, I was probably making, now this is 1973-ish, probably $4 an hour, which was great. Yeah. And then about mid-July, I realized the foreman, if I was making $4 an hour, the foreman was making $6. And I thought, now I know why my father got me this job. And so we started talking about it. I said, okay, we need to go to college. We need to go to a 4-year school and finish this up. And so, I had high school friends who were at different places, and one of my buddies was at Lewis, a great guy named Bill Motluck. And so we were talking, he said, hey, Lewis is a great place. It's a smaller school, you get personalized with the teachers and your friends. And we're having this conversation, and my mother says, well, I think Aunt Madeline's son works at Lewis. Now, you have to understand, in our Irish subculture, like many others, grandma's friends are always aunts. So Aunt Madeline was not my aunt.
Right, sure.
And so I called Aunt Madeline, and she called her nephew here at Lewis. And so I came out and got a little interview. Well, her nephew was Paul Ruddy.
Oh my gosh.
And at the time, he was the assistant AD.
Oh, okay.
And obviously college, as it does private schools, and there was a tuition involved, and so I needed a job, and so he got me. He recommended me to come here, and B, he got me a job in work study job in athletics.
Nice.
So I was the poor schmuck who worked in the laundry room. I think I advanced to taping ankles for soccer players at some point. And so while I was here, my first semester I was a commuter. And coming from Harvey, even though it was close, it was, after a while, kind of hour-and-a-half trip, kind of, because there were no 4-lane.
Right.
159th Street was, probably a dirt trail in those days. But so then I moved on to campus. When I moved on to campus, I joined a fraternity, Phi Kappa Theta, and that became kind of my social life, and great, wonderful people, and still today very good friends from those days. And then, graduated in '75, and because I had worked in the athletic department, Gordy Gillespie apparently knew me, obviously, and appreciated my work, and so I became the intramural director at Lewis.
Very fun.
And in those days, you had a small population on campus, and a lot of people left for the weekend. So Sunday through Thursday, a big part of student life here was intramural sports. Because we only had one gym, you couldn't do intramurals until 8 o'clock at night. So my job was really probably 6 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Oh, geez.
So we would have games late at night and everything. So, but it was a very good experience. I did that for 3 years. I did that for 3 years. as you all know, and as our alumni know, the late 70s, early 80s, financially, Lewis wasn't a very happy place. And in terms of finance, it was a happy place, but the finances were tough. And so the then athletic director called me in, and he said, well, you're the intramural director, and we pay you 12 months a year, but intramural's only 9 months a year, so we're only going to pay you 9 months a year. So he's basically making a budget cut, which is fine. I got it. So I said, well, okay, I'll think about it. I went back for 3 years. I was a dorm prefect over at De La Salle Hall, and I called my dad and I said, hey, can I borrow some money? Because at the time, during being intramural director, I was also going to night school for my MBA here at Lewis. They had just started the program. And so I said, listen, I'm thinking I'm just going to take a year off and get all of it done rather than taking another 3 years in night school. And so my dad was totally in agreement. So then I took a year off from work, concentrated. But once again, so I'm a graduate student, so now I have another work-study job.
Yep.
And so I was the assistant bursar to Brother Richard Bentonhouse. So I worked in the business office while I was finishing the degree. So that's, but you know, Lewis in those days, again, it was obviously smaller than it is now. I still think Lewis today has the same qualities of personal, a lot of great personal relationships with people either on campus or off campus, teachers who knew what your name was, would meet with you anytime. I remember some great teachers, obviously Professor Hill, who's still with us. I was a double major, political science, business, and there was a great professor, Isidore Vazulis. I just remember him telling us stories. He was a refugee from Lithuania in the Second World War, and how he escaped the Nazis, and then in post-war Europe finished his degree by candlelight.
Oh, geez.
So,
He was a political science professor?
Yeah, he was political science. Yeah, he was just wonderful. And then, of course, people like Brother Paul French and Brother Owen Megan. So, yeah, it was a wonderful time. And it was once again, it was a very tight-knit campus, very tight-knit. Everybody knew everybody else. Everybody looked out for everybody else. A lot of competition between, in those days, the clubs and fraternities and sororities, and of course that was all heightened by the intramural.
Of course,
right.
Yeah.
I don't know if your intramurals do it today, but in those days, you played in divisions. Well, you could self-choose, but you played in divisions based on talent. So, gold division, bronze division, gold division, silver division, bronze division, and lead.
In lead?
Lead division.
Wow.
Right, so,
I would have probably been in the lead division.
Yeah, I was certainly in the lead division, I'm sure. But those were very interesting things. Once again, I don't know if they have it still. We had something called knee tackle football. We would take all the wrestling mats and lay them end to end on the main gym floor, and you'd play tackle football, but you couldn't leave your knees.
That sounds hilarious.
Yeah, it does. We because of the way the aviation maintenance program was in those days, those students, they just, their schedule was so packed. They had no time to play intramurals at night. But they had Wednesday afternoon off. So I convinced Gordy Gillespie to give me 2 hours every Wednesday afternoon. And so we had aviation leagues, we had tech leagues. So they would play basketball or volleyball. And so it was, once again, it was good times, happy memory.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And you said did you live in De La Salle the whole time?
Well,
or?
as a student, actually as a student, I lived in Founders, I lived in Fitz, and I lived in Shield. When I was working and finishing graduate school, I worked in De La Salle Hall. Brother Paul French asked me to be, in those days in De La Salle, you had a RA, which was a student, but then you had what was called a prefect, which was a adult. So it was myself, Brother Owen Megan, and Brother Paul French were the prefects in De La Salle Hall. So, Yeah.
So then where did when did you decide that being a Christian brother was the kind of vocational path for you? I mean, obviously you ended up in the business world,
Right.
and also chose to be a Christian brother. So
Right.
how did that all come together?
Well, so once again, because I had lived at the Cell Hall, I knew Brother Paul, I knew all the brothers, and so when I finished my graduate degree, obviously you start, you're going to graduate in May, but you start looking for jobs, and so Brother Paul said, well, why don't you go across the street? At that time, it was the Christian Brothers National Office, and the brother who had headed the company was Brother Joel Damien. He said, Joel Damien's always looking for good people. So I went over there and I interviewed, and 2 days later I got a call, and he said, we'd like to hire you. Little did I know, so that was May or April of '79. Little did I know that in April of 1979, the Illinois Assembly had passed the Religious and Charitable Risk Pooling Trust Act, which created the Property Casualty Program. And so
So you were there on the ground. I mean, you ran it but you were there on the ground floor.
I was-
Because we'll talk about that later.
yeah,
but
right.
that's so fascinating.
Right. So I worked for Brother Damien for 3 years, but so the risk pooling trust was just starting. So I had to go out and visit religious orders, explain the dynamic, because it's very different than insurance. And so he would send me places, or the both of us would go around the country. So it was fascinating. But I think you get to a point, I think, in everybody's life, you got to make some decisions about life.
Sure.
And so once again, I had been around the brothers, I worked for them. Very good people, good mission. They liked what they did. They liked each other, and I thought, well, okay, I can belong to this group.
Sure.
So I was a late vocation. So I didn't join the brothers until I was 29 years old.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how I found them.
Sure. Sure.
And what's the process like of becoming a brother for people?
Well, obviously in previous times, formation was very, very different. They'd have pre-novitiate, novitiate, all these things. Well, I guess they made kind of an exception for me because I was older, and B, I already had a bachelor's and a master's degree. So the first year I was in a community at Montini High School in Lombard. So I would teach in the morning at Lombard, get in the car, and come down here and work for a half a day at the Christian Brothers National Office.
Okay.
So that was that for a year. And then at the end of that, I went to novitiate, which was a year. Novitiate is a concentrated year away from everything. Ours was in Windsor, Canada.
Okay.
Trivia about Windsor, Canada? What's the geographical trivia about Windsor?
Windsor.
It's the only part of Canada south of America.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. All you people listening, there's good trivia.
That's helpful.
Right. But yeah, so you were there for a year. It's kind of different because you couldn't watch TV, you couldn't listen to the radio, and you couldn't read newspapers. Only on Sunday you could do that. And you'd have lectures every morning, but then the rest of the day was kind of free. And I think what they do is part of it is to certainly do some theological training, I guess, but also to turn it inward, to say, okay, is this really for you?
Who am I?
Yeah,
Do I want to do this?
Do I want to do this and stuff like that?
Well, and I think you're aware because you've been on our board.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about that maybe, and but we've done a lot of great work on two of these things that you've raised, which is basically that vocational question: what should I do with my life? And we've really been working hard to ask all of our students really to think about that, which doesn't mean, there was a time where I think vocation strictly meant the vocations within the church.
Right.
Now vocation has this much broader sense of really what you're talking about is take some time to look inward and say, what do you want to do? Are you somebody who is entrepreneurial, or are you somebody who wants to be helping? Is healthcare something that fits you, or does that kind of gross you out? Does a religious vocation, or is it, do you want to have a family? All those kinds of different things. So, but the formation piece is also really important here. We have a great team. Elm, I know you've used them, and for the Christian Brothers Services to do some formation work with that. I guess, I'd love to, I guess I want to turn it, because I know this is such a big part of your life, to the practical nature of the brothers versus some other religious orders. So I feel like Lewis University really focuses on a liberal arts preparation coupled with a practical preparation for a practical degree out in the real world. Everything from aviation maintenance, which you've already mentioned, to being a police officer, a teacher, a nurse, CEO of a risk management pool. So could you talk a little bit about, I don't know if that was part of the attraction, but it's certainly been, as the more time I spend with the brothers, very attractive to me that the Christian brothers that I've gotten to know over the last 7 years have this real sense of practicality in terms of both their spirituality and the way that they look at the world and how they prepare students, because it's all about students.
Yeah, I think it's important to note at the very beginning in the 17th century, when De La Salle founded the Institute, he chose the word brother, and he chose not to have priests.
Right.
And he chose the brother because he wanted the teachers not to stand above their students, but to stand beside them and to help them. So I think that sense of fraternal camaraderie, whatever we want to call it, is so core to not only the brothers, but to LaSallian institutions like Lewis. I think if people read De La Salle's life and certainly the history of the brothers in the schools over the years, it's practical. There's not a lot of fancy things here. It's not incredibly super sophisticated. It's just, hey, this needs to be done, do it. You take it was one of the French republics, one of their revolutions. They expelled all the brothers from France. Well, rather than kind of give up, brothers went all over the world, to Mexico, to America, to Asia, and that's why we're in 82 countries now. Some, whether it's a challenge or an opportunity is presented, and okay, let's do this. The founder of Christian Brothers Services, Brother Joel Damien, incredibly practical. You have these high schools in the 60s and the 50s that are being built. We have lay people who work there, okay? Lay people need medical plans. Lay people need pensions. The school needs to be covered for property and casualty risks. Well, hey, we can do that. We can figure this out. And we can do it at a better price and probably more efficiently. So, yeah, I think it's incredibly practical. And I think LaSallian institutions need to keep that.
Sure.
I need to keep that practical thing, exactly what you're talking about. Try and figure out what you want to do, and we can help you try and do that.
I want to ask, sort of listening to you talk about that, and also thinking about lay formation, as you mentioned, how do you see, and you've been on these boards of many LaSallian universities as well as other organizations, how do you see LaSallian education evolving into the future?
Well, I think for many older brothers, I think there might be a sense of loss, right? Because we don't have the number of brothers to run institutions. But I think from my perspective, because I was a later vocation, so I didn't go to a high school with, staffed by 70 brothers. In fact, I didn't even know what a brother was till I got here. So I think it's a great opportunity. I think people need to understand that yes, there are only 3,500 brothers in the world, but there's 95,000 lay colleagues. 58% of those 95,000 are female. So that's the LaSallian future. It's laymen and women, learning the story of LaSalle, staying faithful to the LaSallian mission. Yes, it'd be great if there were more brothers. The fact is, that's not where our society is today. So I think lay formation is incredibly important. I think formation, but leadership at the institution has to be behind it 100%. And leadership has to give appropriate resources, including money, personnel, and time. Because I'm sure your professors here, your staff here, they've got lots of stuff to do, and probably more stuff than they have time for. But getting back to what you said earlier, they have to take some time for personal reflection, and part of that formation needs to be that reflection. Do I buy into this mission? How can I contribute to it? And I also think, whether it's lay people or brothers, I think no one should be afraid to step forward. I think people should volunteer to do things, and if they think they can do something, they should step forward to do it.
So, because we've talked around it, but maybe could you? There's two key jobs you've had a lot of different jobs, but two key jobs. So, being president of De La Salle Institute, running Christian Brothers Services. I'm not sure everybody understands what Christian Brothers Services is, even though you just talked about it. So, how does, what is it, first of all? And then, like you said, how does it play into not just serving the LaSallian world, which it does, but serving a whole host of other religious organizations, Lutheran and Methodists and all sorts of other people that need this kind of support and find in CBS a place where they really, So talk, I don't know.
Right. Well, we only serve Catholic institutions.
You only serve Catholic.
Right.
I thought other people could buy into it.
No, we only serve Catholic organizations.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of collegial relationships with other denominations.
Yeah.
So you have to understand where this started. Brother Joel Damien was the treasurer of the province. He comes to Chicago, and he's paying bills for St. Patrick, St. Mel, St. George, and De La Salle. And all of them have insurance policies. And he says to himself, well, why can't I get one broker rather than play four people? So he put together. So it's really, once again, it's incredibly practical. I can put this together, I can save money, and I can get better coverages. And then, as I said earlier, when schools, more and more lay people came into schools, he said, okay, now these folks need health plans. So yes, at the very beginning of Christian Brothers Services, probably from 1960 through the early 70s, it was pretty exclusively LaSallian schools in the United States. And at that time, there were 7 universities, probably 70 high schools and a couple grammar schools. But as it happened, he would meet with people from other religious orders. And so the Dominicans would say, well, can we get in your program? Or the Augustinians, or the Irish Christian Brothers, or the Jesuits, can we put our schools in your plans? And so today, Christian Brothers Services, we have 6, for lack of a better word, insurance trusts. Those 6 trusts serve about 4,500 institutions, Catholic institutions across the United States. And in employee benefits and student accident and things like that, it covers almost 100,000 people. And only 10% are LaSallian institutions.
Okay,
So we serve in health and pensions, 403Bs. We serve dioceses, in property casualty. We serve schools. So it's a fascinating business. we're headquartered in Romeoville. We used to be on the campus here, but we sold our building to Lewis 25 years ago. But office in Romeoville has about 180 people. We have an office in Tarrytown, New York, Smithfield, Rhode Island, and Terre Haute, Indiana. So primarily our primary market, for lack of a better word, is the religious institutes or the institutions that they founded that are, maybe there's no sisters there, or maybe they've spun off to an independent school, but they were founded by Dominican sisters. So they would be mostly our marketplace on that. And our dioceses tend to be the small to mid-sized dioceses. Now when it comes to other denominations, because of what we do, we belong to the Church Benefits Association.
Okay.
And so there are counterpart associations, counterpart companies like us for the Southern Baptists, the American Baptists.
I think that's what, when we've talked before, I think that's what flowed over to me.
Yeah, and when I go to those meetings, I'm the only Catholic in the room.
Okay.
Which is just fantastic. I've learned that these are wonderful people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We have about 5 minutes left, so I think we should. I want to transition a little bit to the Signum Fidei, but I have a preliminary question. So you talked about your experience at Lewis, and a lot of the great people you were around at that time. How could you, just for students that are watching, how have you stayed in contact with people you went to Lewis with, and how have those relationships evolved over time?
Well, as I said, I was in a Phi Cap fraternity, so our pledge class. Once a year we get together. We either get to go to a Sox game, get to dinner. Today is Thursday, right? Monday and Tuesday this week I was at Swan Lake with 25 other Lewis alums for a golf outing that a couple guys just have organized for the last 20 years. So yeah, I've tried to stay in touch. And then of course many of my contemporaries are on the Lewis board or involved somehow with Lewis, so people like Jane Condon and Tim Ferraro and Mike Parker and so yeah, I think it's important. I would say my closest friends are from the days at Lewis, certainly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But I want to talk about Signum Fidei.
How do you feel about being honored?
Well, I'm flattered to be honored. I hope people come.
We have a really good crowd, larger than last year for sure.
Yeah, but no, I'm incredibly grateful to the university, incredibly grateful to the brothers for the opportunities I've had in the workspace. But yeah, I encourage everybody to support the mission fund. It's critical. Our company, Christian Brothers Services, we have a scholarship here in honor of my predecessor, Brother William, and that's for a certain kind of a needy student. We've also established an endowment in Brother Damien's name to help with the business school competition.
Right. Yeah, that's
great. And so I think it's important. You know, I heard years ago from a donor at De La Salle, we were kind of lamenting we weren't having a good run with a campaign, and he said, brother, he says, you know, when it comes to charity, some people stop at nothing. so my to the audience, don't be one of those people. We'd love you to support Lewis University, but at the end of the day, please be charitable to whatever issue you think you want to be.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to honor you. Not everybody will be able to be there on Saturday night, so I just want to again say thank you for what has been a nearly 5-decade commitment to the ministries of the Christian Brothers, from educating on the high school level, educating on the collegiate level, and then working in these ministries that really, I mean, for all of our employees, certainly having a pension is an amazing thing in 2022.
Yes.
And so all of our employees and all these employees, the 100,000 people that you cover in these various instruments, I know are grateful for your leadership and you were there during some relatively tough economic times where you had to, you're managing resources and making sure that they're still there 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now. So, grateful for your kind of tenacity around the financial instruments and investments that keep all of us feeling secure and safe, along with being really, I think it's great to have people of values who care about the individual person that are behind your healthcare plan. Because sometimes you get into these healthcare situations and you feel like, are they gonna take care of me, or they're just gonna take care of the bottom line? And I feel like, we've had some of those situations over the past 7 years that I've been here, and it's been great to work with CBS to work through those, where somebody, needs that support, and they're in some of the most challenging times in their lives. So I just think the character is much, your character, your work over 5 decades is what we're trying to celebrate this weekend. So.
Well, thank you. But also, in all those situations, I had people that were wonderful. So it's not all Mike Quirk. It's we have great people at the high school at De La Salle, and great people at Christian Brothers Services. So I was very, very fortunate. But God's been good.
I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
Which is, thinking about all of your accomplishments and just working with you over these last several years, I'm having a hard time imagining what retirement looks like for you and how hard or easy it might be. So how's it going so far?
Well, it's only been 3 weeks, and so I need to get a schedule, right?
Okay.
But getting back to novitiate, so I had been busy. Then you go to novitiate, and I'm stuck in Windsor, Canada, with 5 other people, and it's not a big schedule. I got a lot of time in my hands, and I hated it. After week 6, I began to love it. So I'm counting on that with retirement.
It's great that you know that.
I'm counting on that.
It's great that you've
really
had that
great.
experience already, so you can
I'm counting on
anticipate that.
Yeah. But no, I want to spend more time with my sister and her family. She's got 8 grandkids, and more time with my brother and his wife and their 3 kids. And
That's great.
I have a couple nieces up in the Antioch area, so I want to spend time with family.
That's great.
Wonderful.
That's great.
Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks
I
for
wasn't
joining
sure
us.
what to expect here, but I think I
No,
survived.
it's been so enjoyable.
great.
It's just a pleasure to spend time with you. I always enjoy spending time with you, but also to share some of your story and accomplishments and commitment with our audience. So thank you for being here. We'll look forward to giving you a little more press on Saturday night.
Okay.
Again, if you haven't gotten your ticket, you can still go online. And if you can't attend, please consider making a donation through the website. So we are so grateful for Brother Michael, and hope you all have a really wonderful week. Just again, a reminder about getting your booster shot if you can do that, and getting your flu vaccine, because we just want to create a healthy, safe environment. So those are available on the website. Have a wonderful week. Many blessings to you and your family.
All right. Thanks.
Well done. It was great.